Wonderful. Well, welcome to session 2 of the Nature Journal Academy. I'm really enjoying chatting with you all and learning as well. And I've got some emails. We've gone back and forth, a number of you, about some various kind of philosophical things, because I feel like a lot of what we're doing is not necessarily even sketching and learning how to journal. It's more about psychology and how to get beyond these things that keep us from doing the joyful activities that journaling can provide for us. So it's really fun to dive into that, and hopefully that is helping a lot of you. I'm going to start right in with our presentation and talk about what we're going to be covering and what our goals are. Let's hop over here. All right. So session 2, we are going to focus on starting to draw to learn. I use that deliberately so that we're focused on learning things about the subjects rather than obsessing on the act of drawing. We're also going to look at some templates and ideas for how to structure pages for success based on your goals. And I hope that will help some of you who are starting out and have that like blank page kind of grip terror. We're going to build awareness of that fear point, that terror I just talked about, or that stopping point. What is it that is stopping you? And learning to build a switch to turn it off or transform it into a movement forward, a step forward instead of a step back. And then we're going to talk a little bit about kit and keeping it simple, because as fun as it is to buy things, if we have too much with us for drawing in the field, sketching, journaling in the field, it gets a bit overwhelming. So our outcomes, I hope, for today will be simplifying for success, conquering our blank page angst, retraining our brains to focus on studying and not drawing. So what we're going to do for about 10 minutes or so is I want to come back to the gallery group, hear from you all about how you did, remember our takeaway points from the first session. There are no rules. It's okay if you want to focus on just pretty pages. Diving deep into science with very little drawing is great too. Jotting a few data points and focusing on sketching is also great. Anything works. Words, pictures, it's all great. Journaling is perfect everyday drawing practice and not a perfect drawing every day. Keep remembering, this is the most important thing I want to say every single time and throughout our session. Put away that yardstick as soon as you feel yourself thinking, oh, that's horrible. I wish I could draw like Claire Walker Leslie or Jack Laws. Put that away. Fold it up, stick it in a pocket. And then we're going to work on recognizing those fear points. Part of your homework and what we did last week was setting these goals. We want to hear from you about those. So keep these in mind. I'd love to hear from you. Where you put yourself on this matrix in time, and then what skills, awarenesses, or practices you want to focus on. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and go back to gallery view. Okay, there we go. Who would like to share some? Use the raise hand feature on Zoom, please, so that we can get a queue going and it's easier for me. Great, thank you, Wendy. We'll start with Wendy and then we'll do Pam and then Mar. Oops, there you are. I lost you for a moment. You were lost in the Zoomiverse.
So I have a couple of questions for sticking points for me, and then a thought, something that I do that is goofy, but might help someone else because it's goofy. So, question number one I had that ended up being a sticking point for me was this weird idea that if I'm doing weather data, does it need to be at a certain time, right? Should I be doing a certain time every day? What if I were doing it for the National Weather Service, how would it be? And I got like super caught up in like the perfection of doing the data and then didn't write anything down, right? So if you could give me like a starting point on when of like what just like some guidance would be great.
Fabulous question. And was that it, Wendy, or was it another
Okay,
part?
so my second question was if anyone has a recommendation for a more scholarly book on trees, because I found, again, I got a sticking point of I'm going to go out and look at my birch tree, and I know a little bit about trees, right? But I didn't really know enough, like a scientific amount of trees to really look at it and assess what it was doing. So if you have any recommendations there. And then my goofy thing that I do. So sometimes I have trouble focusing in meditation, right? I've got a lot of things on my mind and I just can't like focus. And so what I do, and this is great for drawing too, is if I'm drawing and there's a little voice in my head that says, "You suck. This is terrible," right? I, I imagine that, like I do with my meditation as a person, she's usually wearing glasses and carrying a clipboard. And I thank her for her input. Thank you for, trying to protect me and letting me know that I'm not working at the level I'd like to be working at, but I'm focusing on drawing right now. Can you please go sit over there and just, chill for a little while? And when I'm meditating, each intrusive thought that comes in, I assign a persona to it and then sit them over in a corner. And then if there are a lot of them, I give them like an Uno deck to play with because my world is filled with puppets, right? It's just like a weird brain that I have. So I wanted to mention it because it's goofy and silly, and it kind of takes the edge off of the angst, and it really helps me with meditation and drawing. So maybe it might help somebody else.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Wendy. I'm gonna crack up now every time that happens to me because yeah, I'm gonna have fun with that. Um, Answering your questions, weather data. Wow, good job identifying that. Yes, if you are a weather station, well, these days I'm not sure there are any people weather stations. It's all digital, but back in the day when I did it, it was 4 p.m.
4 p.m.
and you
And what
had
am I tracking at 4 p.m.? Am I tracking just what I see at 4 p.m. or historical data that happened earlier in
good
the day?
question. Well, if you're truly a weather nerd like I am, yeah, it's so you would do the high and the low of the day and then record everything else is happening that at that point in time. So what the cloud cover is, what um the barometric pressure is, etc. You don't have, I mean, that's like for super nerds. Um I don't do that anymore, the 4 p.m. thing. I just record what's happening at the point in time when I'm grabbed my journal, and I'll write the low at my house because we have one of those weather stations that is hooked up to Wi-Fi. So I've got an app so I can see my barometric pressure, the wind speed, the highest wind speed, the low temperature, etc. So um, that's so whatever works for you, and whatever your goals are. If tracking the weather is important to some project you have, then the same time every day would be good.
Okay, and then do you have another question? Do you have a preferred weather data program, or because I looked online, I kind of went down like a side rabbit hole, right? Of
Call the
okay,
Warren,
well,
yeah.
if I'm going to do this weather thing perfectly, how am I going to do it? Right? So if I were to do like obviously I'm not going to do it perfectly, I'm a human being, but if I were to pick a weather station, what is a if you have an idea of a decent brand or what I should be looking for, any
Or you mean like
recommendations?
a one that you would actually buy and put out? I
Yeah, put in my
will.
yard. I've been wanting to do that for a while.
um I need to go look up the brand of mine. AccuWeather? No, not Accu. I'll have to look that up. I can't access my phone right now because I have it set up as a camera, but I will I will look that up and put it on our webpage for this session because my brain just isn't calling up the brand of my weather station for some reason. Um, they're not cheap, they're going to be $100 to $200 depending on what. you want, but I will do that. And then we can ask the group here too about your tree book. I love the Sibley Guide to Trees for North America. If you're in North America, I'm not familiar with Europe or other parts of the world species guides, but Sibley goes well into science and but not too much that it's kind of too difficult to dive into. Anyone else have a favorite North America tree book? Okay, if you think of it, put it in the chat. Um, great. I love I wrote down your imagining people. I think I wouldn't be as polite to them as you are, though.
I have a suggestion for the tree thing, and it's not like so much a guide to, but it's Tom Wessel's work on like how to read a forest and things. And he's mostly working in the Northeast, New England, but his discussion on how to understand what you're looking at when you're looking at trees in a forest and their history written on them. I found it really fascinating, and it's just amazing to see it through his eyes. So I recommend his YouTube videos. He also has books.
Great, thank you. Let's hear
That's
from
awesome.
Pam.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. I was had a problem with getting back to journaling. I nature journaled for years, loved it, and for the last couple of years has just done very little. So I wanted to get back on track. So journaling every day has already helped reestablish that pattern for me, Roseanne. So thank you. Thank you. The two things that I did to help channel that was I'm in Montana. Last week, I think we had frost warnings, so I didn't even have an outdoor table set up. This because I knew I wanted to journal outside near my garden. I set up an outdoor table in the shade. I have a little tiny orchard, a perennial garden, and herb garden, and the table is right there close to that. It's big enough to where I can take my journaling supplies with me. I have the Merlin app on my phone, and so I can identify what birds are singing. I've got my binoculars. I've got a place where I love to spend time now, and that's really been conducive. It has helped me a lot. And the second thing I did, and I know this seems unrelated, but I didn't delete, but I made my Facebook status inactive. So all I have to do to regain it is to log in with my username and password, but there's no mindless clicking on a phone or an iPad or anything and just disappearing down yet another rabbit hole for 30 minutes. And I've regained a lot of time just by
Nice.
making an appointment with Facebook by having to log in
Oh,
instead of
nice.
something mindless. And I've channeled that time into nature journaling.
Yay.
So it's been great. It's been great.
Oh, I thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important if we say things like I don't have time, we need to analyze what is taking our time. For example, Jonathan and I don't own a television. Um, haven't watched television since 1996. So that gave me tons of time. We turn everything off at 5 p.m. Everything, no phones, nothing. My mother's passed now, so I don't have to be on call for her. Um, so we just go outside and have our time together for an hour or so, and he reads, writes, I do journaling or read or write. Yay, nice to hear that. Phones are very useful tools, but they're also evil little blocks of metal. Hey, Mar, let's hear from you.
Hi. So I've been journaling on and off since just before pandemic and mostly off. And it's the perfectionist thing. And like Wendy, I get really caught up in the metadata thing and like what is the right way to do things. So I want to say that I really appreciate this journaling academy because it's letting me figure out I felt like I had to follow the rules. And so I had these checklists that I could not make it through. and then I'd just throw up my hands and walk away. Um, so what I did was I do a lot of my drawing online, not online, but on my iPad. So I use Procreate and and I defend myself because I start with a blank canvas and I'll pick up a pencil tool. It's just, to me, it's just easier to handle that. And then I'm not carrying a bunch of supplies. If I want a watercolor, I can watercolor it. So I eased into this by doing my first page, just doing my metadata, listing my birds, making whatever questions I had about what I saw or heard. And then I went off to draw those things in a place where I was comfortable. And then I sent them to the printer, I cut them out and I pasted them in so it looks like a nature journal.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Um, but then I said, I really need to dump that. So the next day I did a whole bunch more observation and a whole bunch more plants, and then I didn't draw anything because again, I got caught up in it. And then the next 2 days, I just did it. So um, I picked one plant that was a problem, and I thought I wasn't even going to journal because our landscaper was here. We're redoing an entire backyard bed, and we started talking about what I wanted in there, and we had a holly forest. And she had eradicated all of that. I thought it was completely gone. There was something coming up in clumps all over the place. What turns out that it was some sort of a holly. So I managed to do a pretty good drawing of it. I watercolored it. I did it on paper. And then the next day I went out. This is something that Wendy mentioned about like, when do I do this? I was finding that there were like 3 birds here, even though I live right across the street from a lake. So I went down to the reservoir and I started using Merlin and saying, okay, what's out here and seeing if I could spot them. And there were like 10 different birds there,
Oh,
not including waterfowl. I got there too late for that. But I found that either I have to get up earlier than I want to
oh,
or out
yes.
the door earlier than I want to. So if I do something like go to a nature preserve, I have the reward of seeing something. And I forgave myself with the journal, and I actually just sat and watched the barn swallows.
Nice.
And
I like that phrase. I forgave myself, and we need to remember that. Let's write that down right now, and don't be hard on yourself. And
yeah, so I mean, I sat there for 20 minutes because what was happening was there was a nest up there that looked like it was concrete. And I don't know if any of you have sat and watched barn swallows before, but they take these pellets and mud
yeah,
and they make something that looks like a miniature stone wall.
yeah,
So I thought it was something that the park put up, but they had done it. And there was more than one bird in that nest. And
nice.
so I watched to see what was happening. I still don't know if it's fledglings up there and they're just have gotten big, or if it looked like they were feeding, but it's
Nice.
not quite the right time.
Oh,
So I was
fun.
able to like look at all of that. I did have a good zoom camera and I used it a few times just to see if I could get something. And
Great.
then I came home and I actually drew and painted it. So
That's wonderful. Sounds like a great experience. Thank you
it's
for
just,
sharing that.
I think it's good to just switch up things and figure
Yep.
out what works for you and
Yes,
let your journal be a mess till you find something that works.
exactly. I like that advice. Thank you. Let's hear from Tina. Thank you, Mar.
Hi, Roseanne, I really appreciated the prompts and the assignment for the week. I tend to get caught up in making pictures and then the metadata gets squeezed in around it. We were on a road trip last weekend when we started this. So I was trying to keep track of the rivers we crossed.
Ooh,
And and so one of my questions is I was trying to draw what the vegetation looked like from the car as we passed. So it was good and I enjoyed it, but here's another one I've started on the road. So I have some of the rivers. So my question is, if I want to go back, which I tried to do, searching in Google Maps and just doing a fresh search, rivers along a certain route from South Carolina to Maryland, I couldn't do that. It would only it it categorized the information differently than just showing me, we've passed through this many rivers, or giving me a map, a geographic map with the watersheds and the rivers, named on the map that I could keep track of. How would you go back in time on a trip, go back on a route and find the rivers and watersheds
ooh, good
that you've
question.
traveled through?
Oh, good question. I'm going to come back to the main gallery, and then maybe we have some people who can help answer that too.
Okay.
Google Maps using the satellite view is great for that in some places. My big complaint with Google Earth and Google Maps, they don't often name rivers. Or you'll try to zoom in and the writing is so small you can't read it. So a hydrographic map, you might Google hydrographic map of Southeast United States or something like that. Anyone else have any mapping software? Let's see. How about GPS apps for the phone might have more? Anyone use Onyx?
How about Gaia? Do you use Gaia?
Gaia, thank you. That Tina, check that one out. Just look at their website, see what their interface looks like. Thanks, Nancy. I forgot about Gaia. That's a pretty excellent navigation software that can be downloaded to a phone that has say that again. Oops, I think someone had their that was like a voice from above. It sounded like yeah, so Gaia I would look at for sure. I'm not
Thank
a
you.
Onyx is a big one for travel, especially in backcountry. I haven't downloaded, I haven't used it. Don't tell my friend who works for Onyx. Oops. He keeps wanting me to do it. Okay. So if anyone else thinks of an idea, put it in the chat, please.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Good question. Because going back and looking at maps and things to fill in our journals is a fabulous activity. It's really a great way. Tina's really on a great idea here, doing the rivers, what the vegetation is, but now she needs the data because journaling at 75 miles an hour is not easy, especially on that road. I know the road you took. That's a hard one. Okay, let's hear from Sherry and then Nancy, and then we'll be transitioning to the rest of the program.
I just want to say thank you for this because I noticed in my journal I had done it back like in 23 for maybe a week or so. So I'm hoping this gives me a kick in the butt. Mike, I got a question was out in my yard and I'm finding some things that I have never seen before. One was like, I think they called it dog vomit slime mold, but I mean, and it stood out. It's a bright yellow. I'm not sure how I'm gonna draw that, but Cashy. What about like if you're out and about? How do you mark something if you want to come back? Like I've got a trail that some orchids sometimes appear, and I want to to try to find them again.
Ooh.
Do you just use longitude or latitude, or is there some other GPS skills that could be done? Sorry, my parrot.
That's all right. Good question.
Gotta talk.
Good question. Thank you. Let me pop out because I think there might be other people who can also answer this. Longitude, latitude is great, but then you'll need a navigation system to get back to it, and you'll need to be very conversant in that. a quick and dirty way, if you have cell coverage and your phone is GPS enabled, I drop pins on Google Maps. And you can create a private space with you have to have a Google account and then create a folder that is, like nature spots or something. That's the quickest and easiest way to do it. You can also save Google Maps offline so that
Ah,
save it at home, load it. You can Google how to do that. Just Google how to load Google Maps offline. We did that on a Baja trip recently so that we would have maps throughout Baja.
oh, that's a good idea.
And then as you're walking your trail, you'll see the pin is right there and you can just walk to it. And then these other softwares that people were talking about, like Gaia and Onyx, and those are actual navigation software, very, very excellent. And you can set waypoints, and then it will help you navigate back to them.
Okay. I also wanted to mention,
Oh, Kestrel, yay!
so this is a little portable weather station. You can get them quite fancy. They're not cheap, but this one will do wind speed. It won't tell you the direction of the wind, but your temperature, your barometer, your relative humidity, your wet bulb, which I haven't quite figured out yet.
Yeah.
but
They're
it's
also
kind of
waterproof, Sherry. You can
fun.
dunk it in water.
Oh, okay. Well, it's Oregon here, so in the winter, yes, I kind of got
Yeah.
it because we get so much wind here. So
Nice. Thank you for reminding me of Kestrel. And Kestrel sells that's the model I have, Sherry, that lives in my bag. And they also sell a wind vane for it. So if you mount it on a tripod, it's all included, then you can get the direction of the wind by using a compass. So
oh, right. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I think they're about $25
For
the
the
wind vane set. It just snaps onto your Kestrel and turns it into a weather vane.
oh,
Great.
I'll
Let's
have to
hear
get it.
from Nancy, and then we're going to move on to the next phase. Okay. Oops, oh, you're muted, Nancy. Sorry. Nope. Yeah, I know if you're using your phone. Oh dear. Nope. I can't do it for you, unfortunately. Oh, shoot. Okay.
Oh, wait, here we go. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, there, I was doing it in the wrong place. This is just to address Wendy's question quickly about, what to use for weather. And I have an app, I think it's PWS. Are you familiar with that, Roseanne?
No.
And it's an app that all the weather nerds in your area put their data on there from their weather stations. So
Oh.
I think it's free. I don't pay anything for it. And if you sign on, then you can find people in your area. And so get specifics for,
Sweet.
what you
Okay,
need
so
right
if you
there.
don't
Yeah.
actually have a fancy weather station, you can just borrow it from other people who've posted it.
Yeah, and I found it both, our next door neighbors in Tucson have it, and then people just down the street in Flagstaff have it. So
Nice.
when you travel, I don't know how you go about finding different ones, but I suspect you're able to do that. So that's handy.
Excellent. Thank you.
I can post it on the chat, what it
Please
is.
do, because we'll save the chat and I can put this information on the website for you so it's more easily accessible. All right. Thank you all. This has been really fun. We're going to continue on now. And what we're going to do is go down the road of, I'm going to talk about some tips for simplifying things, a little bit about kit and gear. Not a lot, because we'll be going into color and things more in a few weeks. And then we'll talk about ideas for how to structure pages to get over that hump of, how do I start? And I also want my page to look nice. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't, if you just are perfectly happy with a fine mess of just scribbles and doodles and upside down writing, sideways, embrace that if that's what makes you happy. I know from our poll, though, most of us are kind of perfectionists or recovering perfectionists who are, that stops us because we want that page to look nice. So we're going to talk about some easy ways to think about doing that. And then we'll get into drawing to learn. And you're going to get a start on how to use that. And it's more the psychology, really, than anything else. And it really does help and work. So I'm going to go back to our presentation here. And here. All right. Nope, I'm going to turn that off. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to spotlight myself. That's, hold on 2 seconds. That'll be important for the recording. Otherwise, it's going to randomly spotlight people in the room. And that's strange. All right. Let's go back here. Share. Great. You still, let's see, it should load in just a second. Are you still seeing my talking head? You can just somebody say verbally yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. We're going to talk about simplifying because I've identified this as a real stopping point for some of us. There's a tendency to go out and buy every single thing you can get, and then you end up with very large amount of stuff to carry with you. And we're talking about nature journaling, sketching in the field largely here. Some of you will be doing this mostly at home. Great. Then, you know, all the kit you can have is great. But if we're mobile, here's some tips I've found. So this is how I journal. I've developed a little setup that I'll show you in a minute more closely, where I can carry my paint kit, my brush, and my pen all out, attached to my journal, which I carry just in my arms. Like I'll just hold it, and I can walk, hike, well, not like strenuous hiking, which I don't tend to do while I'm journaling. And then when I see something interesting, it's a matter of flipping open my book and I'm ready to go. Rather than, I am lazy, I won't necessarily sit down, take off a backpack, pull everything out. If I just see one interesting thing, I'll just keep going. So simplifying your kit is a great way to help you out. Really, all you need to journal is a pencil, a pen, and your notebook. This is showing how a pencil, just a standard 2B or HB, same, did I say that wrong? 2B, just your number 2 pencil, sorry. And HB, in Europe, they're the same type of lead. So not actually lead, it's graphite, but how you can use a knife to, say, create a chisel point, so for heavy shading, or a super sharp tip, a kneadable eraser, and then a pen need not be any more fancy than even a Bic pen, which interestingly have permanent archival ink that's waterproof. So nice little side note. I use a fountain pen because I can fill it with a very nice archival ink, and I'm not throwing away a lot of plastic, which I dislike personally. So this is all you really need to journal. Color. I will be teaching our coloring session this minimalist approach. I just use 5 watercolor colors, and I'll talk about that in a sec, but won't go into it. Here's my little board this is a clear plastic board that sits in the back of my journal, magnet strip. You can make your own, go to Ace Hardware, have them cut a piece of plexiglass, glue a magnet on it, have a metal little Altoids tin for your paint, and it sticks on. Use a water brush. If you don't want to use a water brush, sometimes I want a better quality brush. I'll use this Fumui travel brush. And I made a little water reservoir. I'm using that Coroplast plastic and a water container. This is actually for cleaning your contact lenses. And then I glued a steel washer on it so it sticks to the magnet, the lid, because I'm always losing the lids. So that just clips on, and that holds my water for rinsing. If I don't want to use the water brush. If you're not familiar, water brushes, the barrel that you see there, the blue thing, it's squeezable. You fill that with water, and then you have a kind of a constant supply of water. So what I did when I first started out watercolor, though, is I bought a 24 watercolor kit. This is considerably more than that, but this is our tendency, is to like buy everything. First of all, it's too heavy to carry in the field for me. I want to go light. And then I got way like confused about color theory, and it just made me crazy because I would spend all my time trying to figure out what colors worked, and it didn't create what they call mud in watercolor. So I actually use what's called a true primary. So red is not a primary color because I can make red, but cyan, magenta, and yellow. And then 2 bonus colors. I use burnt sienna and warm blue. And I can make any color I need in my journal. This is not studio painting. This is field painting, but it's super easy, and I don't have to worry about accidentally mixing 2 colors that are actually pre-mixed colors and ending up with yucky stuff. We'll talk about that later. But just to let you know, there is a way to do this that does not involve 24 or 36 or even 12 colors. All right, so just to recap, I really recommend keeping it simple so you can focus on journaling, because we're talking about nature journaling here, studying things, recording what we're seeing, and not spending all of our time fussing with watercolor and brushes and digging for different pens. It's certainly something you can add later. Also, keep in mind, you beginners, if you're struggling with the blank page syndrome, some of the journals out there are quite large, like 8.5 by 11, or some a little bit bigger than that. And sometimes that is very intimidating. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, look at your journal. If you've got too much real estate to fill up, go to a slightly smaller 9 by 6, something like that. Even 8.5 by 5.5, I think is a common size in Europe. It's less intimidating to finish one page, which is very satisfying. I also want to really emphasize, when you are venturing into purchasing watercolors, colors, pencils, things like that, paper, journals, invest in good quality. One of the things I learned the hard way by buying the cheapest stuff I could buy, because I thought, well, what if I don't like it or I'm bad at it, is that cheap watercolor is got lots of fillers. It's ucky. It doesn't blend well. It's just not pure pigment watercolor. Inexpensive paper can be very frustrating. So invest in good quality. It will pay off, I guarantee it. Also, today we'll be talking about drawing to learn. And one of the things you will learn is that drawing is like learning a language. If you keep switching different brands, different papers, different journals, back and forth, different paints, different types of color, like watercolor, pencils, or any other type, think of it as learning a language. If you start switching in all sorts of different, like you're learning French, but you add some Spanish words, you're not going to succeed. So stick with what you have until you're a little bit fluent. Then you can start experimenting with adding different things or changing out. So I frustrated myself for years by doing that and not realizing I wasn't getting fluent with one thing before I tried something else. So get comfortable with the basics and then start adding things. All right, next we're going to talk about tips and templates for that getting over the starting out fear. Recap a little bit from last week. Metadata is simply position, where are you, date, time, location. Just name where you are, the date, and the location. That's enough for some people. Condition is, if you want to dive in, be really nerdly, would be weather, atmospheric and oceanic data, sun and moon rise, tide information if you're by the sea. And then context is what's happening right now, a little bit of a sense of the current phenology, which is the seasonal nature stuff going on around you, in relation to the climate and plant and animal life. And I really like this context part because it helps me start out. And I use the metadata as a way to signal to my brain to slow down. I'm journaling. I need to start focusing, turn off all my devices to do not disturb, and also drawing my little grid. You can do a circle, you can come up with your own fun thing, or even just write it on the side of your page, doesn't matter. But I use the actual drawing of my grid as a way to warm up my hand-eye coordination and actually my drawing hand. So I don't use a ruler, so you can see it can get very wobbly, and it gets straighter and better the more I relax. So that's a great tool. So I'm going to show you the process of how this page came to be born, and that it wasn't something super planned out, but I have some key things that I do that help me fill pages without thinking too hard about it, but also end up with a relatively attractive, organized page. So let's look at how I do this. So as I just said, I start with the metadata. Where am I? What day is it? I do like to go into the details. Then I almost always do this. I draw a line, a column. So I've got this big spread of 2 pages. I draw a column over there, which does several things. It breaks this up in a it's 1/3 and 2/3 of the page. So it's not like half. It's helps me with some proportioning. And what this is, I used to write species, but now I call it seen and heard. And it's simply going to be a running list of all the things I'm seeing or hearing on this day, on this trip. Then I just decided, okay, I'm going to draw a rectangle right there. And that helps me plan ahead. I'm like, okay, that's going to break up the page a little bit. I'll find something during the day that's interesting enough to put there. And it'll just kind of pop into my head and be like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'll do that. But I'm not going to force it. But it also helps break this up again in 2/3 on that section. So there's a blank spot on top, a rectangle, and then another blank one on the bottom. So I'm getting some nice visual variation. So then I'll do that context. And then I might, if something, while I'm writing that context, like here, I'm during a coffee break, we were driving in Botswana. We were at Zakanaka camp this morning. I'm writing about overnight, an elephant came in 30 feet from our campfire, blah, blah. And then while we're driving, I wasn't sure what kind of eagle it was. I said, Marshall eagle. I did a quick little, that was just a simple little sketchy sketch, basically 2 triangles connecting with a neck. And question mark, that means I want to look it up later. Okay. As the day goes on, I'm just listing, oh, we saw a fish eagle, we saw a baboon troop of +12 or so, impala times, and then I wrote 100s because there was like so many, on and on. And that just, as I go throughout the day, maybe I'm hiking, maybe I'm sitting in one place, doesn't matter. I'll just write down what I've seen and heard. Then later, maybe at lunch, I saw these cool zebras, or zebras, as our friends in East Africa call them. Really interesting behavior. I wrote, they're walking along, the whole herd, tossing their heads and flapping their lips. I had no idea why, but all of them were doing it. put a big question mark to try to learn why. Never did find out for sure. Then throughout the day, filled in these other sections, kind of linear, did some little, what I call paleo sketch of impalas. Don't have to draw the actual, like a perfect impala. You can use little boxy things and just describe the gait. And then finally, we were seeing termite mounds, looked it up in a guide we had with us, great guide to Botswana nature, and learned some cool things. So I thought, oh, I'm going to put this in here. This is great, easy to draw. And there you have it. The page came together without me angsting and just taking it easy, but also that structure at the beginning helped me with the blank page stuff. And if you're really stuck, John Muir Laws developed some great prompts. He calls it, I wonder, I notice, it reminds me of. So for example, I wondered why the zebras were walking along, tossing their heads. So if you're stuck and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on around me, I don't know what to write down. Get in touch with the part of your brain that asks questions. The kid in you that's like, that's weird. Ask why, and then put a question mark so you can look it up later. Look at all the question marks on that page. That's great. My version of I notice or I see are my lists. I really like them. And then it reminds me of is a great way to also prompt yourself to, like, what do I write in my journal? Well, what is that reminding me of? It? Well, they run like llamas. That reminds me of the way llamas run. I happen to, we live near a llama farm, so, or llama. So those are great. This is another way to show you how you can do a very simple page. This was probably 20 minutes from metadata all the way down to the quick sketch. And this is what it looked like. So metadata, sunrise, sunset, longitude, that morning's low temperature, context. I chose one thing in my yard. The willow acacia was blooming. Did a very, very quick sketch. Noted in, didn't even use watercolor. I just wrote pale yellow. Good to go. This is also a fantastic journal page. When you only have like 20 minutes, do something simple. You'll get your metadata doesn't need to be super involved. It can be just the time and date. So here's a more involved journal page, again in Botswana. This was created during lunch stop at a raised platform above Dombo Hippo Pool. And how in the world did I decide how to do this? Well, there's some tricks. And one of those is to think of your pages in blocks. Instead of one giant blank page spread, I was trying to think in terms of, okay, I had this really beautiful wild sage that was growing everywhere. So I had collected some, so I could, I pressed it in the flower book so I could identify it later. And here we were in this pool, but how do I capture this? So first of all, I wanted to just do a very quick watercolory and pen sketch of this cool pool. Then I used the plant, which was really capturing my attention, as a focal point on the left. So two large pieces, one far away, but kind of landscapey, and one focal point. Not every single plant that I was seeing, but one cool plant that I really liked. And then a small amount of text. And here's an important part to look at here. The subject is Dombo Pools and the plant there growing around it. The other notes were somewhat secondary. And what do I do with that second part right there, the where I drew the horns of the water buck, the kudu, and the impala? Well, I could have put another painting in there like that. But to me, what that does is simply complicates the page too much visually. White space can be your friend. So either leave that blank or just put something simple in it, and you'll have a more attractive to your eye page. And notice I didn't try to do detail on the hippos, the crocs, or the animals on the far side. I just did little sticky figures and roundy things with stubby legs. Probably took me about 40 minutes, which I had at lunchtime. Okay, let's see. Next. These ideas of doing blocks are a great way, as I just said previously, to kind of organize your page without like having to think too hard. Akshay here did 4 columns, equal columns over 2 pages with a harmonizing strip at the bottom. And notice he's not afraid to leave white space, which is great. If he had filled all that in, I think this page would have been cacophonous. But the way it is, each column was something interesting. The growth there on the left, the tequila information there, the identification chart, and then information about reproduction. Super great. These are all great ideas. Another way to organize your page using this column idea here. So again, 4 columns, equal size, a strip across the top, which helps bring it all together. Love this page. Look how simple it is. The drawing was easy because they're silhouettes. Hey, that's a great way to get comfortable with the birds and proportions, copying silhouettes out of your field guides. Love the little just short vignettes. This was a great way to do that. And that was Pat Koenig's. I see that her name, I accidentally forgot to pull that over. This was a fun project Kate Rudder did. This is my pages from Kate's class she did during COVID, which is called the 10X Project. Google 10X, the film, I think it's 1970s, really fun. It's a zoom out, zoom in activity. So number 1 is the biggest circle, and then all the other ones are the same size. Nice harmony there with slightly bigger circle, and then the rest of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Each one is a particular zoom out in this case. So started with the agave thorn, zoomed out, you see the thorn a little bit more in situ, zoom out again, you see the plant, zoom out again, you see it in my yard, then my house, then my neighborhood, then my state, then my region, then my country, and then the planet. Super fun. This was all done in my head. I started with the agave plant, but then you just got to get visual, go to Google Maps and get creative here. Really fun, very fun to do. Gets you over that blank page. How about when we're traveling and in some place like blowing your mind, Africa, this is Alaska, the Brooks Range. Wow, I'm sitting on the bank of the river. What the heck do I decide to do? Do I draw? This is a drawing grid. I'm not going to go into how to use those today. But if we want to cover those at one of the other open sessions, I can. Would you draw this whole thing? That would probably take me forever. How about if I just focus on that one spot right there? And that's what I decided to do. That way, I captured the little creek down at the bottom. I got the willows. I got a slice of the mountains and captured the snow. And in that way, I've got a perfect remembrance of this beautiful vignette. Willows were fruiting, so that's a great little thing to put. I put the name of the creek, the direction, and some other bits for the rest of the day, seeing the snow geese, etc. So more travel and journaling tips, because a lot of us tend to do this. I really recommend for traveling the 2 notebook system. So a small field notes type journal for the on the fly notes, messy sketches to remind you of things, scribble in, saw what I think is a Marshall eagle, or, oh, was that what species of goose was that? And then describe, yellow bill, orange eye, yellow feet, etc. Then at camp in the evening, you fill in your main journal. And to help with this is important because traveling can be tiring. Make it a very important task. It's like same as checking your fuel, checking your oil, or topping up with fuel or water. Journaling is just as important. So set aside time for it, like as you set up camp. And have a glass of wine while you do it. It relaxes you. It helps you like just chill. If you don't drink alcohol, make it tea or some such thing. Just make sure you don't dip your paintbrush into your libation. It's quite a thing. Yes, I've done it. More travel ideas are to incorporate a map. Here's a page from Baja Journey this January. I sketched in part of the peninsula, and then over the days I added where the camps were. And in my prose, in the descriptions, I would reference at camp number 3, and then I have my little map. Wrote as I went what was happening. Notice on the left-hand page, there's my seen and heard, which actually over a long journey, I will continue that the next page. See continued page 151. I just keep it running. It's a running list. And then it broke that page up into 1/3 and 2/3 more or less, and easy to throw in, like, I call it cabinet of curiosity items, a rock, a shell. I totally forgot to annotate those as to what I thought they were. That was actually an obsidian rock. Great way to do that. Kristen Link is going to be teaching a session for us on how to focus on things like cabinet of curiosities for your journal, feathers, rocks, seashells. Another great idea for travel, hiking, carry trail tile. Excuse me. Yeah, Max Romney calls them trail tiles. They're called artist's tiles. You can get them in a lot of places. Hanamula makes them. This way, you've got these tiles you create things on, and then you can attach them to your journal. That way, if you mess one up, bink, you just toss it, do another one, and your journal isn't wrecked. So let's see what this looks like. So this was my birthday trip to Santa Fe a few years ago when I turned 60. Yay, we went to the opera. So much fun. Love that. And so the trail tiles over the course of the day, riding in the truck, I sketched out my little map, which moved between tiles. And I stitched them together with just linen thread, just tied knots in little loops. And then you can glue that in a journal and it folds out. Just remember, you got to leave one blank for gluing, or take a single tile and you can do both sides. And it's fun. You pull it out and you've got a little hidden, the raven on the phone pole. That was hilarious. He was doing the raven quarkling, but he was also meowing at a cat that was in the alley. This was behind our hotel. Hilarious watching this raven harass the cat. The cat was going bonkers because the raven was meowing at it. So now I remember that. And it's a fun way. So again, if you mess it up, it's a safe way to add. Notice that's all just text, and then the tiles, you can see, make sure that I remembered on the next page, I'm going to leave room to cut into my journal for that. So fun. I really, really like that one. So for journaling a garden or your local park, another way to approach it is focus on one vignette and then identify as much as you can about that little vignette. I didn't try to draw the entire neighborhood scene that was before me here. in front of our house in Tucson. This is before we moved. I just drew, this is a very messy, fun little sketch of a saguaro cactus, the mesquite tree, the creosote bush, and the ocotillo plant. And then you annotate it. There was a Gila woodpecker nest in the saguaro. The Lucy's warbler was singing, and there was a nest in the mesquite tree. It's actually a cavity nest. The creosote was blooming. There was a spiny lizard. I didn't draw it. I just pointed to it. Leafcutter ants. This is a wonderful remembrance of this one point in time, a very simple page that you can do for your journal, garden, local park. Another idea for doing a walk or a hike is what John Muir-Laws calls a landscapeito, which I love to do, capturing a scene, and then 2 cabinet of curiosity type items on the left, a feather and a leaf, not as intimidating as trying to do the entire scene. This was a super fun visit, by the way. I was fortunate to, when COVID started, a gentleman named Ryan Pedersen and I were both teaching nature journaling, he at Stanford, me at the University of Arizona Desert Laboratory. And then COVID happened and both of our programs went belly up, right? That we're not meeting. What do? We teach outdoors, we teach nature journaling. So together, he and I figured out these virtual field trips. And my very first virtual field trip on Zoom, my very first Zoom class was Ryan and I did a virtual field trip using this cool 360-degree photography that was available online. And we walked up this glade, up to this glacial moraine in northern England, and we drew this. And then 2 years later, 3 years later, 2 years later, I can't see the date because the Zoom's covering it. I got to go there and walk where we did this virtual. It was so cool. Anyway, kind of digressed there, but we're going to, landscapeitos are fun, and we'll have a session on that later. And then don't forget about focusing just on phenomena. Here, we spent a couple of years living in Alaska, was super cool. We did have to decide to pick one or the other. We couldn't do 2 households anymore. And, but I really dove into the incredible world of winter, studying snowflakes. That was so much fun for a desert girl. And I was like, whoa. So using black paper, I made a little book. You glue that into your journal. And then using my iPhone and that plastic sheet that I use for my paints, I call it a Perspex palette. I'd put it in the freezer, get it frozen cold, run out, capture the snowflakes, put black paper underneath so I could take pictures, and then I would draw them, and then I learned what they were. So don't neglect things like phenomena. When you see ideas like this, the ones that I've shown you, and I will put these on the website, you'll have these as reminders. I'll put pages up. Create a little cheat sheet for the back of your journal of layout ideas like this, like 4 columns and a strip along the bottom, or a landscapeito, and then 2 cabinet of curiosity drawings. I like these odd number things like 3s. So just recapping this, so develop your own way of getting into the zone and metadata. Develop your own way that works for you. Metadata for some people is like me. Others dive into it, get totally nerdly. Develop a fun way to do it. A stamp even where you could stamp in your structure. And then I do recommend writing that little bit of context, helps you relax. Not angst about the drawing. You don't even need to draw if you're not feeling it. And then remember your metadata, the position, condition, and context. So when you do start adding sketches, I recommend thinking in these like blocks of threes or columns, or putting in circles ahead of time, different sizes, arranged, in a pleasing way that you like. A drawing compass helps you with that, or anything you have on hand, the lid to your water bottle. This helps you organize the page and get over design angst. And as I said, make a cheat sheet. So I hope that helped you. I'm going to stop the share here and come back with some ideas for expanding how you journal if you're already journaling, or if you're just starting out, how to get over that, I don't know what to do. Anyone have any comments or ideas to add to that? Use the raise hand feature so we can take people in queue. Any other ideas, things that work for you? We've got some people who've been journaling a bit, but that blank page idea, it often stumps us. Or how do we do it when we're traveling? That's so hard, isn't it? Nothing to add? Yay, Amy. Let me spotlight.
My boyfriend is a comic book artist, and something I like to do once in a while is kind of pre-templatize my journal in kind of like comic book panels.
Ooh, fun.
Makes me entertained.
I like that. That's a great way to do it. And then that, as you're walking, hiking, traveling, you can think, oh, that would make a great little story, and fill in those squares or rectangles. And it just gets over the idea of, what do I do? Tiffany. You've changed locations.
Patience worked better for me. So there's a couple of different things that I like to do, and I really love the 2-journal system, especially when I'm traveling, because I have found that if it's not in my main journal and I have sometimes a little bit smaller area, I'm just a lot freer to jot as I go. I make crazy notes, little sketches, and then you have to commit to making the time later to transfer it over. But I also do think it kind of extends my experience a little bit, especially if I'm making lots of notes or asking myself questions, because when I get home, I'm looking up those things and it's extending my travel experience. But that's one of the things that I was thinking about. And then also to kind of predetermine what I want my page to accomplish.
Yep.
Why am I going out? What am I looking for out of this experience today? And that changes sometimes for me. Sometimes it is, I want to do art. I want to make something that's pretty. Other days, I really want to deep dive into a specific subject. And that may make a big difference on how I approach my page from the very beginning. And sometimes that helps me focus and not be worried about the page, because I've already determined what I want to accomplish in the end. Am I just noting stuff as I encounter it? I'm on a hike and I'm meandering my way through, and that's how it falls onto my page, is how I see it. And there's no other rhyme or reason than that. But sometimes it's like, I'm going to dissect this plant and I'm going to dedicate this page to that. So sometimes that helps me.
A deep dive. Yeah. I like that. Nice. Maybe later, if we have time, Tiffany, we'll have you show people your disc bound system.
Sure. Or I can do that when I present as well.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Let's do Sherry.
I guess I have more of a question. We go on like trips over to Europe, but they're more, group oriented. You're with a group, and they're more or less in cities. We might get the chance to go out in nature a little bit. Usually I just kind of write down where I've been, what we did, what we saw. Someday I'd like to do some urban sketching too, but so how could I incorporate my nature journal into that? Because I'm sometimes not seeing a whole lot of nature. Maybe just do some weather data and
Yeah, good question. Um, let's see what we all think. Um, Generally, we go to England every year for about a month for the RGS Explore event, and so it's a lot of it is urban. My journals are the same. I'm picking out things that maybe more focusing on, hey, there's those interesting Egyptian geese in Hyde Park. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a city, but there's something there. So you can pull in nature as you go and mix it in with your urban stuff. Make your prose about your days exploring. I would absolutely combine them. If you don't like combining subjects like travel, cities, and nature, carry two journals, one for nature and one for your urban, more urban, or could be gastronomy. It could be a, if yeah, it could be what you're eating or something like that. And you can cross-reference them in each other. Say, in one journal, make a note. Oh, see France journal number, blah, 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 date. Make sure you label your journals so that you can see there's two that go together. That would be one. Anyone else have any tips on that you want to share with Sherry, or put it in the chat? Those are great things. Yep, you can make it what you want. Jessica, what would you like to share?
Okay, I think, can you hear me? Did I get it right?
Yes, you're good.
Okay.
You're unmuted.
So I decided last time just to make this journal, this time for this class, my scribble journal that includes with my class notes, and make it really a research journal for things I'm learning about for my eco garden. But also I decided to start just popping my photographs in because I'm mostly a photographer. So that's what today's page looked like. I'm researching Virginia creeper.
Nice.
I actually have a Virginia creeper and I was just learning more about it. But this is from the hike I did yesterday up Mount Watatic, and the hike was too strenuous, and I was hiking with a friend, so I didn't stop and draw there. But these are some photographs I did, and I decided to just start doing it like that and making it much more of just an info journal and not try to make it pretty for this round. And maybe, my next journal will be prettier. But
Nice.
now
I like that combination. And yeah, don't hesitate to put photos in your journals, and you can buy little mini printers that spit out small
Mhm.
pictures that are already they have sticky. They're already just peel off and stick.
Yeah, this is printed on regular
Yeah, I noticed that's just
paper
copy
and just
paper.
glue stick.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, don't hesitate to do that. And Sherry, that might be a good combo for you. A good way to do that. And look up those little mini printers. They're fantastic. Tiffany, I think you bought one. If you could put the brand in the chat. Yeah, share your brands in the chat, please. That would be fantastic.
I'll have to go find it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm also going to combine that with video recordings occasionally, like doing the video of what I've taken the picture of and talking about what I'm seeing and whatever when I don't really feel like sitting down and taking the time to draw it and then transferring it in later.
Yeah, good idea. Great. Tina, how about you? You just did your big trip.
Unmute. I wanted to recommend having different journals like you had suggested. I was up at oh gosh, Storm King in upstate New York last summer. And they had just this quick little watercolor journal. And the great thing about having one like this, when you talked about multiples, is I can go on a walk and carry it. I was on a camping trip last in May, and when we were taking a hike with a group, someone else mentioned when you're with a group, it's you don't often get opportunities where you can pull aside and do a drawing. But I just kept a list of what species I had seen and added to it, tree species. And then we had a rainy afternoon the next day after a short morning hike. And so I was able just to look at the tree across from our campsite. We were along the Shenandoah Valley River. And it's not my best drawing ever, but I love it because it captures this place in time.
Yes.
And I will always think of that camping trip and being there. I had one other thing I wanted to share. We were on Hilton Head Island last week. So here's my little sketchbook. I would go on these long morning walks and collect like this cordgrass, dried cordgrass up near the dunes. And, I'll have a little plastic bag and I'd see the coquina shells. And so I drew just the coquina shells, and I like that. Then over the week, I was trying to capture the color of the distant ocean, the kind of plum colors that are in the sand. I got my cordgrass in. I got some memento from the shells and a sense of the beach. And here's another one. I didn't want them to rub off on each other, so I cut a plastic bag I had, and used them taped them in to cover the pages.
Oh, fantastic idea.
So just a couple of suggestions like that.
Love it. Love it. For the second journal idea, I love that. And if y'all have like a main journal the way I do and my little scribbly journal for quick stuff, or you have a second art journal that's smaller, and you do those sketches and maybe leave them, only do one per page, don't do them back to back, then if you really like something, you can cut it out and paste it into your main journal. That's another way to do it. And there's a little psychological trick going, is that you've got this little practice journal that's small and you're like, oh, I don't care what goes in here. And you know what happens often for me? That first one that goes in, because I'm not angsting on it, I'm not like, I don't care. My brain is released. I do the best sketch ever. And then I'm like, cool, I'm going to cut that out and paste that in my main journal, because the second one's never as good, I feel, because that immediacy and love that came out in that one where you were released, where you weren't thinking about it. And that's what we're going to get at with the drawing to learn, is you're going to be tricking yourself into not thinking about drawing. Because as soon as you start thinking about it, those little demons, which Wendy's really nice to, and she escorts them off. I tend to want to kick them off a cliff. So it's like our personalities are showing. Cool. And Mar, what you're gonna have to, I can't spotlight you till you turn yourself on. There we go.
Yeah, so you had actually shown us, I think it's someone who's teaching later, did their messy sketches somewhere else and then did them after practicing.
Alex does that. So does Tiffany.
Yeah. So I went to my local art supply and they have the Canson spiral bound journals, and they have perforation. So you can get your 8.5 by 5 sheet. And I went over to Michael's and got a hole punch that it actually has like a bunch of different settings on it. And so what I did was I have a 6-ring journal that I use now, and I can just like do what I want in the watercolor journal and then punch the holes and put it in there, or punch the holes and put it in there and use the watercolor paper.
Nice.
So that really seems to be working well for me. And then I could put different kinds of paper in the same journal.
Oh, I like that. Yep. We're going to get to that too. Some ideas. I like that a lot. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, everyone. See how we learn from each other, as well as part of the process here is being a cohort and sharing together all these great ideas, and you might find that eureka idea that's like, ah, that's what I've been searching for the whole time. Right. So now we're going to jump into drawing to learn. And as I said, this is a whole different way of looking at the process of field sketching. This is not a studio art. This is adapting what we want to do for nature journaling, travel journaling, creating these things for ourselves or to share with family. And this is a process that works really well for me. So we'll go through the process. I'll show you examples, and then we'll come back, kind of talk about it again, and then talk about your homework for the next week. So here we go again. Now we're going to dive into drawing to learn, mastering sketching any subject in 5 easy steps. And it really is. So we're going to channel something different here. By the way, this photo I chose a number of years ago, that is the Sycamore Gap tree in Northern England, which 2 horrible individuals cut down a few years ago. So that is a special picture. Drawing, sketching, stretches our brains. It's actually a really great activity for a lot of reasons, but the main reason, besides learning, and we're going to use that as our tool for moving forward, that drawing does push our brains. Sometimes it hurts, but your brain loves to learn. And when your brain is learning, you have actually activated neural pathways, actually do expand and extend in your brain the more you learn. So the harder it is, the more your brain actually releases endorphins. It loves it. It's like, cool. I know there's that part of you that's like, ew, this is ugly. I hate it. But your brain is still growing. What I teach is what I call the language of drawing. None of us was born learning how to speak a language. We had to learn it. Same thing with drawing. Drawing is simply words, which I call the lines you make, the marks you make. You learn grammar, the shading and the expressions. And you learn syntax, proportions, the views, the details. Everyone can draw. We just need to think of it as learning a language. It's not going to happen overnight. You weren't born drawing. You weren't born speaking a language. You had to learn it. And interestingly, it is not magic, nor is it an innate skill. And here's a myth debunking right here. We all grew up hearing, oh, right brain is the creative brain, left brain is logical. You're either right-brained or you're left-brained. There's a famous book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. But recent research absolutely debunked that. Neither is dominant. Both of your supposed right brain, left brain, the creative part, the logical part, work together on both art and science. So if you're the logical, doing something logical, you're borrowing that creative side. If you're doing art, you're actually borrowing that logical side. They work together. You develop creative skills and you develop science and math skills by learning and practice. There isn't a magic pill, I'm sorry to tell you. That isn't what these classes will do. No class will ever be a magic instant pill for drawing or watercolor. It is simply, you gotta put in the practice. That's all there is to it. That is the great thing. It just means we have to do it. So, what are my 5 steps? I'm going to go through them quickly here, and then we'll go back over each one. This is what I consider the most important step. I call it study. Then we make marks. Then we find shapes, which is another form of study. We draw to learn using those first 3 steps. And then the final step is refining details based on those first 4 steps. So what do I mean? So study. Literally, to go deep into the subject you would like to draw. In this case, we are going to look at, I'm going to show you a video of how I studied this tree. I specifically went out looking for a tree to draw. And then I spent a long time studying it. Here what the steps will look like. I call it the walk around. Be the crazy person that you see talking to themselves in the park. Say what you're observing out loud, or you might write keywords down, but don't sketch anything while you're doing this study, but think about what you might sketch. Or you can even sketch in your mind. This is a great tool. You're looking at that oak tree and you might even start looking at, oh, there's that leaf, and run your eye over it with a pretend pencil. Run your eye over the shape. Run your eye over each interesting thing. And you do this thoroughly. Walk around if you can. If you can't, sit, observe, take notes. Don't sketch anything yet. Thick description is what is sometimes called in writing, where you're just saying what you're observing out loud, or if you're a writing kind of person, write it down. But saying it out loud is important. All right, I'm going to share this is my walk around of this oak, so you can see the process and hear me thinking, hear me asking questions and being intrigued.
All right, we are looking for our perfect tree. Trying to find one that's isolated so we can really get into sketching and learning. Ooh, look at this one. Oh yeah, let's go take a closer look. Oh yes. Hello, beautiful tree. It has a lot of character. This is either a Arizona white oak or a Mexican blue. I also noticed the fallen branch here. That's quite a big branch. Looks like it came off right there, and another one there. Could be lightning, a windstorm. All right, let's go get set up to do our study of this beautiful oak tree. While studying this oak, we'll note the leaf shape, and that there's old acorn caps still on it here. Beautiful leaf shapes. Oh, look at this. Looks like some sort of predation. What else are we noticing? Maybe a few dead leaves from in the spring when it replaced its leaves. You can still see a few of the dead ones hanging on. What else do we notice? Was this, what kind of injury was this? And this tree had a lot of acorns last year. Lots of acorns in the leaf litter. And you can see some of this year's flowers, little flower stalks. I hear a hummingbird. There goes, oh, and a butterfly. This is a silk tassel shrub right next to it. Ooh, look at this. And someone's hole. Maybe someone lives there. Looking at the leaf litter, aha. I was hoping to find one of these. This is an oak gall. It's a hollow. You can hear it. People call them oak apples. They're not fruits. It's the little house of a wasp baby or babies that developed in here. The wasp laid her egg in the bark or a leaf, and the gall grew on the some fleshy part of her bark of the oak, and the baby wasp develop in here. It's sort of a protective house. They're hollow, and we're definitely going to want to keep this as an oak mark, a detail that we want to learn about. After you spend time studying your subject, it's time to move to step 2, making marks. And here's a tip. If you don't want to jump right in with your field journal and use a virgin page of your good watercolor paper, I lace in the back of my journal inexpensive copier paper. And that's where I often make marks to practice and get to know a subject. Another tip you can do, if you don't have the kind of journal that you can lace things into like mine, is I make a little booklet and keep that in the back of the journal. This is copier paper, and I've stitched it and just with linen thread. You can use regular thread. And this can also be where you make your marks. And then you're not afraid to mess up your watercolor paper part of your journal. Or feel free to go there too and just make all sorts of doodle details, I call them, making marks.
All right. Now we will go into what I mean by making marks. Studying was the most important thing we do. We slow down and we get to know our subject. And this next step is literally making here's oak marks. What I studied in the walk around, now I want to use messy sketches and really dive into the essence of this oak. I'm getting into my brain the details, these doodles that comprised this oak. So, if you're studying a rock, making rock marks. If you're studying a sunflower, making sunflower marks, hummingbird marks. This is how you get your brain to switch over into the learning mode. You're representing the subject and you want to do it as quickly or as carefully as you like. So if you're into like the messy doodles like I am, you're just do 15 leaves if you want. But if that's just not your jam, draw them carefully. Do what makes you happy. But consider them doodles, detailed doodles, because those are the words in your new language of drawing. This is going to get into your brain, the essence of oak. Try to do 6 or 8 of them. You could put them in boxes or circles or just randomly plop them on the page like I did. Really an important step, part of the drawing to learn, because every time you do one of those little doodles, you're learning something and putting that bit of that oak in your brain. So the next step, whether you're drawing a tree, a landscape, whatever, we want to find the big shapes. In step 2, we were focusing on details, little things. Now we want to focus on, because this is a tree, I wanted to get the essence of the shape of this tree. And you do this by finding the shapes. And there's some tips for this that really help. This will work on landscape drawings. This will work on animal drawings. Not so much maybe your detailed botanical drawings, like say a flower, although finding the shapes will play a part in that too. So finding shapes is using the essence of the subject you gleaned during steps 1 and 2, the studying. And then we're going to find those big shapes that represent the entire subject, the tree here. Those that I just showed you were called little thumbnail sketches. You're doing it super fast. Use a pencil or pen, but just be free to be sketchy with it. I'm going to show you what this means, because when I was first learning, everybody kept throwing out this idea, oh, find the negative spaces. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And it was really difficult to sort of like, what does this mean? But I'm going to show you in a minute. It does really help. And then you do this multiple times, many times, until you're kind of capturing the essence of this, in this case, the oak. Let's see what that looks like. I'll play this several times. So you're sitting here, you've done your studying, you've got a lot of stuff in your brain about details, but now we want to draw this tree. We're not going to do like a super scientific illustration here, but we want to capture it and get the proportions and the shapes right. So here's what I'm talking about, finding the big shapes. Okay, give it a second. That's what I'm talking about. There are really only a few big shapes here. And the negative spaces are the spaces that are not the tree. So there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so shapes in the middle of this tree that's what they call negative space. So it's ignoring the foliage because we put that in later. We're looking at the trunk and the rock there at the bottom. So if you look at the bottommost negative space defined by the rock and the tree limb on the right, it looks like a sweet potato or a chili pepper there. That's a really important shape to get in your brain because it's going to help us when we draw this tree. So will those other shapes, especially the one above that looks kind of like I don't know, what does that look like? It's kind of a vertical thing, or a diagonal thing, looks like a seal or something like that. Let's look at that again. So before the shapes come, stare at the tree and try to find the shapes that are not the tree trunks, and then the shape of the foliage, the bigger part of the canopy. That's what we mean by finding the big shapes, and it just takes some practice. And you do these doodly vignettes over and over and over. So then the next step is to actually put this on your page to draw to learn it, like so. On the website for this class, I will have a much longer, detailed view of me sketching this tree. We don't have time for us to do it in a 2.5-hour session today. So you will get a bonus of this process, but you'll also want to practice this yourself. So I'll have all these resources on your website for the class so you can practice finding those shapes and drawing this tree and seeing how this process worked. So the steps are, I like to put a proportion box or something on my page to help me put that subject in there without like having it blow off the top of the page. Oh my gosh, how often do I do that? I'll start drawing the tree and I'll realize, oops, I got the proportions wrong. So all that fits on my page is, I've got half the trunk and the rest of the tree is actually off the page. So if I draw a box first, then I use these proportion tricks, which I'm going to show you in a minute, to get it right. This is that grammar I was talking about. This is the grammar you need to learn. This is the process of our drawing to learn. The grammar is learning how to take these proportions and get them onto your page well. Channel steps 1 to 3. We are drawing to learn about this tree. Don't think about the whole drawing process. Think about the steps 1 to 3, the marks, the doodle details, the shapes. Keep thinking about that. Take your time and you dip into your marks to add the characteristics to the subject. That's the syntax. And this is what I mean. To come together, you make marks there on the right, scribble, 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 messy, messy, messy. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just keep doing them. You find your big shapes. Then we start the process of putting this on the page. How do we do that? To get that proportion of that tree on that page without making it kind of blow off the page. So there's this great trick. You've all seen probably, representations of artists holding a pen or pencil out in front of them. Well, it does work. Using a drawing instrument, a pencil, works great, whatever you have. And you hold it out straight. Your arm is straight in front of you. And you hold it up. And you're going to use it as a quick and dirty way to understand the proportions of what you're drawing. You close your non-dominant eye. So for one, this is measuring the height. I moved my hand back and forth on this one until I found the pencil was exactly this height of the tree. And then I locked that in. So I didn't change where my arm was. So your arm is like a piston. So I moved it in and out until I got the height. Then turn it sideways in the same plane. Don't move your arm now. And now notice, it's almost as wide as the pencil, but just maybe a tenth of it at the end. So that gives me a good proportion for my drawing on the page. I get the height first, mark that in with dots on the page, height, bottom, and then the sideways marks I'm going to put in there, not quite full. It'll be 9/10 of that. The width. And then another useful thing to measure is hold it up again with your finger more or less in the middle of your instrument and mark the center of the tree and make a dot right where that is, or a line, even a light line, just so you'll have that proportion marked on the page. So what does that look like? Here I'm going to show you. I have this cut out so I can show you what this looks like. So for example, here, that's not right. I'm pulling it out until it's the correct height. Oh, yep, there we go. Yep, I'm going to lock my arm in. I'm using my non-dominant eye. Now I'm going to check. Yep, here. The width. Yep, there we go. Here. It's about 9/10. Voila. This works with a lot of different things. So you'll translate this onto your page using those proportions. And then the center line where we want to go here and find that center is more or less like right there. It doesn't have to be super perfect. This is field sketching. So don't angst yourself over it. All right. Quick and dirty way to do proportions. And we can work on this next week as well when we do our check-in to do examples, and you can practice this. And if you're having trouble, ping me during the week. We can work on it too. Refining details is where you really dive in and choose 2 or 3 of those things you learned in your walk around. Maybe a leaf, maybe the oak gall, maybe the flowers, something like this. The texture of the bark, an insect. When I was looking at that video of when I was holding up the oak gall, I got to go back and look at that. I think one of the little wasps landed on my finger. It's the first time I saw that. Gall wasps are tiny. They're about the size of a tip of a ballpoint pen. I think I saw one land on my hand. And now I'm all excited. I can barely contain myself. I think I saw that. I'll be able to go back and check. How cool would that be? But back to our drawing. So a great way to organize this is to take these details and organize them on the page, circles, squares, or not, around your main study, and then add color as your final. And we'll be getting into color, I think, on the 4th session. And that's what I came up with. So there's the oak gall. I called it a wasp apartment. It's ended up being an Arizona white oak. I checked in my Sibley. I drew a leaf, colored it in, showed that it was lighter on the bottom. I wrote in the size. Instead of trying to draw like a huge detail of the bark, which is exceptionally detailed and difficult, I just did like a zoom in and just did a little bit of it to give a flavor of what the deeply fissured bark looked like. And as you can see, the tree is not like a perfect rendition. This is capturing the essence of the tree, but I got the shape, I got the proportions, the size, the rock. Did I draw every single thing that I saw? No, I focused on the subject. And that really helps you when you're drawing, is not to try to draw everything. You'll be there all day. This is entirely doable in the field. It would probably take about an hour once you get comfortable. Not including your study part, though, which do not neglect. Eventually, this process becomes part of what you do. Some of us can now don't even need to do the preliminary walk around. We're kind of doing it all the time. That's what I'd like you to work on, is this walk around idea of studying what you're seeing with the intent, thinking of it. Oh, draw it with your eye. Look at that tree. Draw the canopy with your eye. Find those shapes above that. Find that chili shape that's above that rock. Find the leaping seal shape kind of that's in the center of the tree. That really, really helps us. So those are the 5 steps of drawing to learn. And you can apply it to anything. But to reiterate, it is about studying and making marks, most of all, really. For example, hummingbirds I find exceptionally difficult to draw. I've got tons of them around here. The more time I spent studying them, talking it through, long straight bill. Bill goes back almost to its eye. Bill looks like it's 2 head lengths long. I'm saying this out loud as I'm studying the hummingbird. I'm not trying to draw it yet. This is what I did. And then I started making hummingbird marks in the back of my journal. Oh, try to get that bill. Try to get that shape of the belly. Try to get that shape of the head. And finally, when I dive into it, I find that information, that hummingbird language is in my brain already. And it was far easier to draw a hummingbird because it was in my brain already. I didn't just jump in and try to draw a hummingbird cold. So that's the essence of drawing to learn. So let's hop out now and talk about this a little bit. Any thoughts on this? And then I think I'd like to do some breakout rooms so you can talk about it with each other, because not everybody is comfortable, in the big group talking about these things. But if we go into groups of 3 people in a room, then you're kind of forced to talk, aren't you? Okay, Tiffany, go. You're not afraid to talk, yay. Oh,
Not afraid to
okay.
talk. The first time I heard you say this drawing to learn, not learning to draw, I had a complete light bulb moment. It was completely nature journaling, life changing for me.
Hey, I'm so glad.
Because now when I am observing something, it is not, how am I going to draw this? It's, what am I going to learn from this? What am I going to learn about this subject while I'm trying to draw it? And so for me, like I said, completely life-changing in that respect, because now I approach almost everything with the mindset of, I want to learn as much as I can about this subject while I'm drawing it, and I observe it so much more closely, which obviously helps me understand how to transfer that onto the page. So again, I just wanted to reiterate how much that one statement, learning to draw, changed my life in my nature journaling adventure.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. That's wonderful. And it really does help us find that point. So when you're doing this and you start feeling gripped and you're like, you're thinking too much about the drawing part, switch back to studying and sketching it with your eyeballs and writing notes about it. And then move into the drawing process more slowly. But as Tiffany said, it's really about learning about something and then studying it. And I'm telling you, the hummingbird thing, it took me a couple of months. This didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to happen overnight for you. This is practice. If you want to sketch, then you do need to kind of put some time into it. Not kind of, you do. It's not going to happen overnight. As I told you last week, I stopped journaling for a couple of years because I wanted to be Claire Walker Leslie right out of the bat box. I was just like, I looked at my stuff and it was awful. And I was just like, done. You know, I'm a perfectionist. I wanted it to be perfect. But getting over that is super important. And it just took a lot of years of doing this to make it work. So sorry to say, it's not the classes that are going to make you better. It's the drawing that's going to make you better. You can take a zillion classes, but if you never practice, it's just going to stay the same. You'll just be talking baby words, you know, your whole drawing practice. So think of it as a language. You've got to learn the words. You got to learn the syntax and the grammar, or you're not going to make any sense. That goes with swapping out your supplies and paper and stuff too much. Honestly, that can trip you up. You won't notice it. But if you're going from like really, really rough paper to really, really smooth paper to paper that's made for watercolor and to paper that's not made for watercolor, and you're trying to do everything on this and you're still learning your languages, it's going to trip you up. It'll be like I said, mixing French and Spanish. You're not going to make sense. You're going to get things a little sideways. So get good with supplies that you have now. Then you can start adding new stuff, and you'll be good. So you'll notice, oh, okay. So when I use my ink pen on this new paper, it bleeds kind of a lot. So I'm going to have to change my style a little bit, or I'm going to be unhappy. But you'll be good now. You'll notice that. So that's a great tool for that. How about if we take just like 10 minutes, let's go into breakout rooms. I'd love for you to talk about what you saw today, and just talk about why you think this works. If you think it's going to work for you, if not, what are some of the friction points that might trip you up, and how can you identify those and then find a solution forward? Wendy, I think she's going to be leaving soon for an appointment, but she taught us last session about her friction point and how she identified it and then formed a solution. And that's the thing we have to do. Find these points that make us uncomfortable or like we're going to fail and find a trigger and then apply it. For me, it was turning off the voices in my head that were telling me I'm not Claire, and saying, no, be quiet, focus. I would turn to the back of my journal and just do a small drawing. One of the things beginning sketchers do that is a little bit telling is we tend to sketch really, really small first, little tiny, because we're afraid. You don't want to do a really bad big drawing, so you do a really bad small drawing. And it's actually much harder to draw little teeny tiny things, so try not to draw too tiny. So let's go into some breakouts, and those of you, the big dump. They
Whoa. I just want to say thank you so much for recommending these pens. I've never used a fountain pen before.
Oh,
loving it. It's so smooth. It's so nice.
Great. Oh, good. They're such a great tool. They can be like children. They're messy and annoying, but we end up loving them anyway. Nice. Well, I'm going to finish with another, just kind of, I'm going to go through the slides of what we want to do, what we will be doing next week and what your homework is, and then we'll come back and have any final thoughts. So let's do the last, and I have to find there we go. All right. Make sure you're muted though. And I forgot to, it's 3 times in a row. You guys think I would learn? Um, I wish the share reminded me to spotlight. So for the recording, it's really nicer for the recording. Okay, we are going to be talking about our breakouts and what's your assignment. So, as you can probably guess, I would like you to work diligently on drawing to learn and choose a subject, maybe take all week to work on this one subject, and practice the 5 parts of drawing to learn. On the web page, not the community forum, but the web page, there's a download with a cheat sheet of what the 5 parts are. I'm going to have up there photos of the tree. I'm going to have a more extensive video of what the process of drawing the actual tree would look like. Practice your proportions. Don't forget to go back to the website to download things. Also, working on metadata and things. If you haven't been back to session 1's section, I added a bunch of fun cheat sheets for metadata, weather, things like that. Work on recognizing that fear point, the point, Wendy called it friction point, and visualize escorting assign them a personality, as Wendy said, escort them out of the room. I prefer to like kick them off the cliff, but whatever works for you. There is no fear in drawing to learn. As soon as you start getting gripped, refocus on studying the subject. Turn off that voice that says, I can't do it. And going back to our, keep it simple for these. Don't try to throw in a whole ton of kits. And then next week, we'll have our first live check-in. And we can continue working on drawing to learn, ask questions, tell me how you did. I'll want to I can give demos if you're struggling with something, but I'll also have, I think about 10, 12 time slots for one-on-ones. So anyone who wants a private one-on-one to ask questions, you don't want to do it in the main, I'll have some slots. So there's going to be a link when this session's recording goes up. There'll be a link for sign up. It'll be a spreadsheet to put your name in if you don't want to do. And just as a reminder, it's okay to be busy, have obligations and other interests. This is your self-care pledge I want you to internalize. It's okay to want to embrace creativity as well. We can do it. You will be kind to yourself. You will not judge yourself. As someone in one of the breakout rooms, I was reminded to remind you what the worst drawing you'll ever do is the drawing that you never do. So be kind to yourself. And oops, go through that again. Do not judge yourself. And then be pledge to keep your routine. Make quiet time. Turn off that phone, the apps, computers, TVs, even 15 minutes a day you can find. Even if all you do is write, even if all you do is write down the weather, make this a routine to open up your journal. Okay, and so we will see you Saturday, June 27th, the same time. I'll be setting up the link and everything as always. And we have just a few minutes if anyone wants a final words. Anything that you talked about, anyone want to share? Thoughts, fears, have you like, I know what my fear point is, and maybe the group can help you find a way to escort that fear off. I know it sounds easy, but it's not. It's actually quite hard. Yes, Jessica. Oops, you're muted. It tends to mute. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I had to have a question for you. When you were talking about learning to draw hummingbirds, I was wondering, did you work from photographs as well to learn about them, like so you could actually really see them when they're not zipping about so far?
Good question. I tried to split it half and half because one of my challenges for myself um, lately has been live sketching animals, especially birds, which are extremely difficult to live sketch. And it's just so, yes, in the be kind to yourself realm, I do have loads of hummingbirds, so I am lucky. I did study them live, but they do move fast. So yes, yeah, I would open up Sibley or Merlin and go, oh, okay, that's what that beak looked like. And then draw that beak, do the doodles multiple times. Draw that beak, draw that beak, draw that beak. And then that's the language that got stuck in my brain of, oh
Mhm.
yeah. So now when I see that the broad-tailed hummingbird has a different beak than the Lucifer. So it'll pop into my head and it's in my hand-eye coordination now too. So yes, use those field guides to practice for sure.
Thanks.
Great. And I see there's some great tips going in the chat, which I will pull out and put on your page, more easily accessible as well. I should have everything in about 24 hours. It's gotten real summer here now, so I'm we get up literally at 4:30 in the morning at this time of the year and go to bed by 8:30. So I'll have plenty of time tomorrow to do that. So, okay, so Linnell, and then we'll wrap up. Oh, you're mute.
There it is.
You go.
Found it.
Found it.
I just wanted to say thank you. It was a great class. I was sorry to miss last week, but I got a lot of great information, and thanks to everyone who put things, the little printers and all that good
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
That's the
Thank
fun
you.
part of these is thank you for saying so. And yes, thank everyone for helping each other. That's what this is about. We may be meeting online and far away, but it's also about our community. And this is your cohort. And as the year progresses, I hope people will help each other. And I want to do a lot more talking about ideas for how do you identify and deal with those points where we stop ourselves, because we don't want that to happen. I want to help you get over that hump. So those of you who feel like you're doing better at that, I'd love for you to help share as we go along your tips, just like Wendy did. So thank you. All right. So email me if anyone's like really stuck. You're like, I have no idea what you were talking about. This is not working for me, and we can chat. So see you next week for the open session where we're going to just cover anything and everything you want to ask and check in. All right, everybody, have a great rest of the weekend. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next week.